forward with what you have to say, expressing things as you see them. Time after time in his art spirit, Henry says, be yourself.
This is the late Walt Disney in 1958, distilling an insight so crucial for artists that this may be the missing key for what we need to hear more than ever to reignite our creativity, as well as prevent entertainment and art as we know it from slipping away into complete deterioration. Everyone has heard this statement at some point, regardless of what type of field or career path one has chosen. As an artist, I, among many other artists, have heard similar pieces of advice thrown around when it comes to improving our craft, such as work on your fundamentals, study the masters, or just practice. And while these tips aren't without merit, there doesn't seem to be as much emphasis on how to bridge that gap between general practice and our own creativity. After rewatching this later in life, I began to understand more of what it was trying to say in a way I have never heard before, and with how nowadays, almost every part of the entertainment industry has been declining due to more reasons than I care to count. It's difficult to feel hopeful as an artist in a world that doesn't seem to value entertainment as much anymore. As the landscape of media has been changing, I can't help but look back on some of my favorite pieces of media in the past that I grew up with and feel like we're beginning to lose something special as entertainment as a whole feels different. There was a time where this contagious sort of magic and excitement captivated people when something new was coming out, especially when it came to shows, movies, and video games. Now, don't get me wrong, we have witnessed some of the most incredible breakthroughs of our time in recent years from all the mediums alike, as there is still a clear demand for good entertainment. But for every good story we get that is sincere, memorable, and inspiring, those stories are seeming to become fewer and farther between, as we are drowning in what feels like this void of endless slop with the guise of story that constantly demands our attention and wallets without saying nor giving anything of value to us in return, leaving us feeling uninspired and hollow. There are many concerns surrounding the overabundance of lazy, low-quality, junk food-style media that are a whole other conversation. For today, I want to focus on a studio that was once regarded to be the ultimate juggernaut of the world in animation and entertainment, who bestowed the most invaluable insight on what it means to be an artist: Disney. To further understand this insight, we need to travel back to the silver age of Disney animation and dive deeper into what I can only describe as one of the most profound pieces of media I have ever seen in how an artist can harness and infuse their work with the truest form of creativity and inspiration. Today, we are going to look at the time when Disney gave the best advice on creativity. The 1950s was booming for Disney. The post-war economy was exploding with growth and opportunity, Disneyland had opened its gates, and 4 of their animated movies would sit comfortably in the top 10 spots at the box office for that entire decade. And during this time, we would be introduced to the TV show The Magical World of Disney, where the world is given one episode that would stand out among all the rest, and it aired in 1958 in Season 4, Episode 25, where we are presented the title card, An Adventure in Art, 4 Artists Paint One Tree. Here we are introduced to Walt Disney holding a book titled The Art Spirit by American painter Robert Henry. This is presented in context with questions and hesitations that artists have experienced in trying to decide how to draw, what style to choose, and what not to choose, while summarizing the point of this section, the book to be yourself. We are then presented to 4 legendary artists who at the time are working on the film Sleeping Beauty. We start with one of the 9 old men and original animators at Disney's Genesis, Mark Davis, along with Joshua Metter, Walt Paragoy, and one of my favorites, Ivan Earl. Each of them are seen working in their own roles for the film, from character design, animation, visual effects, and backgrounds. Although they are all working towards a common goal for the film, their individual traits still shine through their work. You can still see their unique fingerprints from each of these artists all over this film in so many different ways. This next segment is what I believe to be the heart of this entire episode, where we get to see these 4 artists go out together in nature to further sharpen their artistic skills by studying nature in their own way and vision to carry their studies out beyond simple fundamentals. They all come across a massive oak tree in the field, that they want to try to capture and begin setting up their canvases and materials. We begin to see even more of their personalities and preferences stand out as we observe each artist using almost entirely different mediums and setups from each other. Whether it was intentional or not to showcase this, you can tell that each of these artists has an air of confidence with just how meticulously yet casually they handle their materials when setting up and getting started. Where this gets fascinating is when each artist begins to explain their thought process behind their workflow in terms of how they capture the same oak tree. Walt Paraguay sweeps his canvas with bold graphic shapes, approaching the oak tree with a more calculated and abstract scrutiny, identifying the statement that this tree itself is making, and as he mentions, comparing it to that of a skyscraper. His art reflects his use of sharp and clear colors layered on top of bold and geometric shapes. Joshua Metter captures the oak tree with reverence and awe, painting in with looser strokes that seamlessly blend into each other to show an immaculate collage of the tree and the landscape surrounding it. He brings up how this tree is a living thing, full of personality. Instead of blending all of the colors on the canvas, he instead leaves these strokes with his palette knife unrefined to further capture the movement of the tree as well as the dappled light peeking through the foliage. Ivan Earl takes a far different approach from all of the others by zooming in on the intricate detailing of what he calls a portrait of the tree trunk, as he compares the details of the bark to that of an ancient tapestry. He designs in a way where you can feel the age and roughness of the bark, capturing its own character with its beauty over the passage of time as we see the building up of the trunk slowly come to life on his canvas. Mark Davis sketches with a wild and free flow of energy as he explains how it seems to burst from the ground. He creates a strong, solid gesture, capturing character above anything else with a strong sense of direction and contrast with the sharp, bold lines he uses against the other values to bring a sense of depth with the branches. On a side note, I tend to find the slight awkwardness in their narration to be kind of hilarious as it gives the episode this endearing and authentic kind of quality.
But no doubt Ivan Earl sees it from an entirely different point of view.
Yes, I do.
Each artist carefully observes and crafts their own version of the tree. Outside of the constraints of the studio, they seem to tap into this unbridled freedom of expression. Just by looking at how they work, they all possess confidence in their choices of styles and mediums, yet they're also different from one another. For them, this was just another day where they got to sit down and study at their own pace in their own ways. The entire goal wasn't to paint the tree as it was, but how they saw it. They were able to fully express their own ideas through this one study, as well as delve deeper into their own sense of creativity by simply being themselves. This goes back to Robert Henry's commentary on what the core of creativity is and what Walt Disney summarized in the beginning. Be yourself. The work of these four artists are all wildly different from one another, even outside of these studies in the studio space. Just take a look at the sheer variety and ranges from these artists and notice how expressive and unique they are from one another and how much they all confidently lean into their own preferences. It's not hard to feel inspired when we look at how freely these artists of the past, among many others, flex their imaginations in their work. And I think this is important to keep in mind when we as the artists embrace the idea of creativity with how unique, personal, and individualized it is, we can let go of these swirling insecurities and expectations that we place on ourselves. We can just be free to create however we want in our own ways to capture how we see the world around us. There is a time and a place for studying things how they actually are to better understand our subject matter, but sometimes we can unintentionally get caught up in this vicious cycle of studies where we are constantly in study mode and not exploring further outside of those boundaries and either playing it too safe in our comfort zones or being too self-conscious about going outside of what we know and not taking those chances. From this episode, we can gather 4 valuable takeaways that we as artists can use in our work, studies, and designs today. Number 1, just start. This is obviously easier said than done, as there is no magic formula for trying to encapsulate a perfect workflow. The process itself takes work, and that includes going out of our way to explore and try out new ways of studying and designing in our own creative work. The best way to learn anything is by simply doing it. By the end of the day, it never hurts to try something new. So the next time you start creating, maybe try a different style, a different medium, or a different subject matter. Whatever you decide to do though, just start exploring and creating. Number 2, draw from life. There is a good reason this is still a fundamental practice, because it works. We get so focused on our screens all the time, and while references will always come in handy, nothing beats getting out into the real world and observing it with our own eyes. Observing things as they are in their entirety is always going to be the best way to understand whatever subject you draw. So learn to draw and observe from life, whether it's a life drawing session, a visit at the zoo, plein air painting, or just sketching things around you. Just start drawing from life today. Number 3, be consistent. You don't need to rush out the door tomorrow to create your magnum opus. Whatever you create, it's going to take time to improve on it. And it's okay to start small and eventually ramp up your goals later on as you get better. But being consistent is what will always carry you the furthest when it comes to improvement. When we look at other artists' work, we are seeing a snapshot of years to decades worth of practice. Because no matter where they started, they never stopped. They were just consistent. As long as you're consistent, you will only get better over time. Number 4, you make your art unique. Remember, whatever you create, the greatest defining feature of that creation is you. You are the special sauce, the secret ingredient to the secret ingredient soup of your work. You are what makes it stand out from everyone else. AI may be able to copy what you make, but it can't create what you make. The stolen work from AI generation is just a cheap imitation of human creativity. No matter what happens, no one can take away your creativity and your skill set and the ideas that come along with it. The world is always going to be changing, but our desire to use our creativity will not. With so many advancements in technology and capturing new ways to tell stories through animation, games, film, and many other types of mediums, we have the best opportunities now more than ever to explore how we can implement our creativity. The evolution of technology is inevitable, and as we press forward into the future, we need to keep in mind that our purpose remains unchanged. Having access to a virtually endless library of reference, software, and knowledge at our fingertips has granted us an incomprehensible amount of material and learning that was never possible at any other point in history. We are no longer restricted by miles in proximity. There needs to be more stories and creative works with purpose and meaning. Even though media can be generated with AI, there is no intention behind them. It's just mindless noise fabricated to capture your attention, and it'll end up being forgotten because it fails to stand out among every other piece of slop that is essentially the same. I will continue to make art no matter what happens. Creating art through imbuing our own experiences and interpretations that help make up our creativity is what we have been called to do, and to pass that along to the future generations. Creating will always start with the artist. While studying the fundamentals is important, it's equally important, if not more so, to embrace those creative preferences in how you draw and see the world around you, as we can clearly see each of these artists doing just that in their own ways. Just start today with what you have. I believe that the message of this whole episode is very simple, that each of these artists fully embraced, and that is to create. Don't imitate. Each of these 4 artists were able to do just that as we recognize how differently they operated from one another. The world in its current state has many problems, and generative AI is only one of many issues plaguing the industry. We don't know what the future holds for tomorrow, but we can still move forward with our own stories and the creativity that drives them and start paving a new future of our own. That's what I at least ultimately hope to accomplish as an artist myself. I truly believe that things can and will change over time, but part of that change starts with us. We can still create and inspire others to do the same, and no matter how bad the world may become, that doesn't mean that we are completely powerless. Embracing the simplicity of creating and enjoying the craft seems to be less common, as many are more concerned about perfection. And while I do agree that we should strive to perfect our skills, we need to go back to remembering why we even bothered to pick up our pencil and sketchbooks in the first place. For anyone who feels a bit discouraged when it comes to their art or creative endeavors, I highly recommend you watch this episode yourself, as you can watch this whole episode online right now. I cannot recommend it enough. I want to close this video by quoting the last lines of this episode from Walt Disney, as I think this encapsulates how we as artists can embrace our creativity. Now, each of these artists is right according to his own ideas. What each one has painted is not just the external appearance of a tree, but his own personal response to what the tree represents. The great painter has something to say, He does not paint men, landscapes, or furniture, but an idea. Thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I hope this video was helpful. And make sure you're subscribed for all things related to art and animation. Take care everyone, stay creative, go out and draw some trees, and I'll see you next time.